Welcome back to the studio. I'm going to be working on this poppy right now, and it's going to be predominantly white, so I will paint the petals first with my mixtures of white. This is a combination of white plus dioxazine purple, and that's Dioxazine. It's a tough one to say, but I want to get my shadows in, and then this is a combination of white plus ultramarine blue. I vary the mixtures so that there's interest in the shadows. This is phthalo blue plus white. And my background's still a little bit wet, so I can make those edges a little softer. Now the top of this petal is going to catch a little bit of light. Oops, get my tissue here. You notice I wipe my brush pretty often. I use a lot of toilet tissue, but a clean brush gives you clean colors on your canvas. So I just bring, that petal curls around, so the front edge of it will be light, but then behind will be in shadow. And these petals are sort of kind of like crepe papery, so there's dips and stuff in them, which makes shadows and things. Now I'm going to get darker down in here. This petal here comes up and around, and so it's darker, and that one is behind it. So I make this one darker, and then this will come up and catch the light. So this is in shadow here. This is casting a shadow on this petal. Now this paint, my background, some areas are dry and some areas are wet, so I have to kind of work back and forth. And I've saved my background colors so that I can go back in and soften edges if I need to. Changing out my tissue, I use lots of toilet tissue to wipe my brush. And I just have it hanging on a wire underneath my palette on the front side, so that it's easy enough to just grab off with one hand some tissue. Don't have to use both hands to get it. Okay, now we're going to start doing this petal here. And the tips of the petals are going to be red. Right now I want to do my shadows in there first. Now the center of this, the stamens are going to cast a shadow up on that part of the petal. This is deep down in here, so we're going to have a little, it will be darker down in there. And you can see, I love these big bright square-ended brushes because you can use the flat edge to make big broad brush strokes, or you can use a corner to make smaller strokes. Now these petals there's a little bit of petal in behind here. They split, so we've got a petal back there. I'm going to bring some of my phthalo blue plus white here because that's part of this petal here. And this one, I'm trying to see how my sketch is. Okay, that comes around like so, okay. And this comes down. The top will be light hitting it, and then we get darker as we go down here in the recesses between the petals. Okay, this is coming up. And then this is a separate petal here, and this guy is also going to be dark down in here. Now I don't want him, it comes over this petal, I want it to be a little bit lighter so that you get some feeling of dimension there. But these are, and I pull my brush stroke in the direction of the little crenellations or little pleats in the petals. That's the right term for it, pleats. Pleats in the petals, pleated petals. Now the back side of this petal is also in shadow, but it's going to be, since the light's coming in from the upper left, there's a little bit of, these petals are really thin, so the light kind of comes through. So this will be lighter. See, I can just use that edge to come down and let that flow around. Oh, and I love how this picked up some of the dark. That just helps give some of that feeling of that's pleated. And the light will catch some up here. Now this one is, I'm just trying to see how that petal goes. I'm almost thinking that this needs to be in shadow right here. And then that little edge will catch some light. This one is pretty well in shadow, and I'm going to use then the corner of my brush to give us the feeling of some of those pleats. But again, you can see how I'm using that to give the feeling that that petal is curved. Now I'm going to, let me start on this one. The light's hitting here. Comes along the top of this. Now I'm going to be making the edge of these petals red, but there's also there's some of the whites being hit too. There will be some of the whites showing. So I'll go ahead and paint the white, and then I'll bring the red in over it. Now that's I pulled too far down in there, so what I can do is just come back and bring my feeling, get the feeling again of that depth, that roundness, or the curve of the petal. Because the petal curves up and comes back. Let me get a different brush here to add this white. Comes like so. And this little flower then is going to, this little California poppy down here, this orange one's going to come up over this flower. And that gives a feeling of dimension into the painting. And then this curves back around, and the front edge of that catches light. And then the back of it, the light's coming through it, like this one. The light's coming through it, so it's a little bit lighter. It's in shadow, but it has light coming through it. And I have to keep wiping my brush quite a bit with this white, using the white, because I want to keep my colors really, really nice and clean. I want that white to be good and fresh. Now, this is where I break out over my frame. You see the tape over the edge. That's my Senkarik signature frame. It's a heavy acrylic that we paint directly onto the gallery wrap canvas. Then I just tape off that edge. I can paint my painting. And when the painting is complete, then I can just pull the tape off and the painting is framed. This is something that Jack came up with when we lived in Hawaii. We were living out there. We were having to ship everything from the mainland to Hawaii. So we were in 3 different galleries at the time with my work, one in Massachusetts, one in California, and one in Hawaii. So we were having to order frames from the mainland in the States because each gallery wanted different type of traditional frames. In California, they wanted the gold leaf, plein air type frame. In Massachusetts, they wanted a more traditional type frame. And then in Hawaii, they wanted koa wood frames. So we were having to ship frames from the United States out from the mainland out to Hawaii, and then frame the paintings and ship them to the galleries. And of course, stuff would get damaged in transit and stuff. So it was just a real headache. So Jack came up with this framing, and it became our Senkarik signature framing, and we've done it ever since. My collectors love it. It sets off the color and the paintings, and it's based on one of the old master impressionists, Pissarro, and he framed his paintings in white. And he said the white acts as a foil from everything around your painting. It isolates it, and the colors appear more bright. And it's true. We sometimes collectors will decide to have my paintings restretched and just frame them in a traditional frame, And it's amazing how different they look. With that white around them, the colors just really, really pop. So that's the purpose of that tape and all that you see. I'm adding a little bit of a lighter, some of my Dachshund Purple plus white, because this shadow is getting a little bit more light, so it's not quite as dark. But it's still in shadow, but it's getting some reflected light. Maybe that sounds better. Not exactly sure. Now that should be more in the light. Again, I'll be adding red on the tips, but this kind of gets us started here. Now this one has a little bit of white hitting that petal. There will be a little bit of white hitting right in there. Then now let me move back to my larger brush, clean it out real good in my thinner. And now I start working this petal. And you can see I can just use the edge of that brush to do my petals. This is catching the sunlight. And I keep this paint pretty thick. And I want to pull from the edge down into the shadow so that I keep my whites nice and clean. And I'll come back in and fix the shadows. Now this, again, is my lighter Dachshund Purple plus white. We just are seeing the back of this petal. But again, even it has variation in there because the petals are kind of pleated. And I'll bring a little of lighter blue in here. Our petals are beginning to take shape, and again, this is going to be in shadow here, because that's, actually I made that curve incorrect. It needs to go this way. And this gets darker. Actually, this one's going to be a little bit darker, the one in front, because the light's hitting that more directly. Even though it's shadow, it's got some of that translucent. The petals are sort of translucent. So since I have the curve of that, I need to make this like so. Okay, one more here. Keep my brush wiped out and good and clean. And then this one, again, that petal kind of flips back, so it's catching a little bit of the light. And then I'm going to use some of my ultra white plus ultramarine blue here, because this is getting more toward the back, further away from the light. So we don't want that as light. And I bring some of my Dachshund Purple plus white in there. And some of my shadows up into that. So there we have our white blocked in. I will continue this in a second part so that you will see me adding the red in there. I hope you'll come follow along and watch. You can always see the progress of my paintings on my blog. The link is in the description below. The address is also on the final frame of my video. So thank you for watching, and come watch part 2.